Yo quiero salir del mundo por la puerta natural.
Hola, hey, it's Dave Douglas from Greenleaf Music for the A Noise from the Deep podcast. This episode with Manuel Valera, whose record for Greenleaf is called Jose Marti en Nueva York. Fantastic album with a whole bunch of great players. And we're going to talk about his music and his composing in Cuba and lots of other musicians. Really enjoyed hearing this music and talking to Manuel. Hope you enjoy it too. As always, you can get all of the music that we make at Greenleaf Music by visiting greenleafmusic.com. You can subscribe and get the whole catalog. You can get Manuel's record, and tons of other stuff, and of course all of these podcast episodes. Hope you enjoy them. Thanks so much for listening. As always, you can also email me. It's podcast@greenleafmusic.com. And thanks for listening. Manuel Valera, great music. How are you doing?
How's it going, Dave? Thanks
good.
For having me.
It's good to see you. The last time I saw you, we actually sat down in person without a mask or anything. And it's actually not that long ago in the big scheme of things.
Was it like February or something?
January or February, yeah. So right before it all happened. And we were talking about this record, Jose Marti en Nueva York, that you made for Greenleaf. I mean, that you made for yourself and your band, but that, I'm super honored and proud that it's on Greenleaf.
Amazing. Well, I'm super honored to be on Greenleaf as well. I've been a huge fan.
Thank you.
I've been a huge fan of you for a long time, and also the people on the label. But I remember I was maybe like 20 or 21 when I first moved to New York. I may have been 21. And I walked into Tower Records, and they were playing a record that you did for Mary Lou Williams. That was 99, maybe. I think it was 99. Or
Yeah, Soul on Soul was the name of that record.
Beautiful record, man. And I bought it, and from there on, I was completely hooked in your music.
Oh,
and I got a bunch of your records, and I mean, amazing stuff, man. You're an amazing composer, and I'm honored to be on the same level as you.
All right. Stop. That's very nice, though. Thank you. I appreciate that. And
I also saw that band at the Vanguard, which was really nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think what grabbed me about this record, about your record, just the way that you're using the harmonies and the voicings of all the horns, but also the way that you brought in the vocalists, Camila Meza on the song we were just listening to, and then your own piano playing. So it's an amalgamation of all kinds of stuff, and then on top of that, all of your influences of the different musics that you've played in your life. So it's such a personal statement. I thought I would just begin by asking if you feel like big band writing is like a central homeland to your musical vision.
Well, I when I was in college, like most of us, I'm sure you too. You were earlier and younger, and we got to play with a lot of big bands. In the school there was a lot of the big band was kind of the thing to do. If you got to play on the top big band, it was kind of like a cool thing, whatever. I mean, later I will find out when I started playing the piano is really not that cool in the big band. It wasn't that exciting. But the good thing is that I got to, it's kind of interesting to be in the mouth of the beast when you're listening to because one thing is to listen to the music, for example, of Thad Jones or Ken Wheeler, but another thing is to be in the band playing that music. Mm-hmm. And at Florida State, where I went to school for 2 years, the director of the big band there was super into Thad's music. So we got to play a lot of Thad's and Bob Brookmeyer's, like stuff from the 60s. A lot of that music, and it really sparked my interest in big band altogether. And I did a lot of writing for larger ensembles. In my maybe first 17 years in New York, I did a lot of stuff with strings, woodwinds, chamber music stuff, but I didn't really do too much big band writing. And the music on this Jose Marti in New York, I wrote originally for my new Cuban Express small group, and I always felt like it was kind of this kind of needs to be a bigger thing than just sonically it felt like it should be something more massive. Just because Jose Marti is such a massive figure in Cuban history, and it just needed to be. I felt like a bigger sound. And last year I received the Guggenheim Fellowship, and that kind of this project is kind of joined with the Guggenheim Fellowship, and it gave me an opportunity to really focus on writing for the big band and also performing. We got a residency every month at this small place in Queens called Terraza. Yeah. And I was able to workshop the music, a lot, which is kind of like when you hear those Thad Jones, Mel Lewis recordings from the 60s, you could tell that band's playing a lot. Yeah. And that's kind of a lot of the times now, a lot of the big band records that are coming out now, it's kind of music that's kind of recorded, but it's not really played live. Just because there's no, I was very fortunate to have the opportunity to have a place where I could just keep writing and write more. And the guys in New York are so amazing. This is the only place that you could have a big band gig with this kind of music with no rehearsal and it sounds good.
Well, and the fact that you get to do it every week and stay committed.
It was every month, but still.
Well, still be committed to a group of musicians who get to play your charts multiple times and have that live experience of playing it for an audience. Right. And you hear that in the performances. Yeah, it's and that really, and also last year, I lost my wife to cancer, and it was writing all this music was a very therapeutic thing for me. Because I don't for those of you that have done big band writing, I'm sure you've done some big band writing as well. It's very it's very involved, and you get in there, and it's kind of time consuming. And when you need to get your head off of something, just at least for a couple of hours, it was an amazing thing for me to
kind of step away from all that and like just kind of focus on something else for a little bit.
What a tragic loss. I'm so sorry.
And it was hard,
I'm sure,
yeah.
Well, I'm sure that sense of loss and the story of loss came into the music as well, because that is deep.
Of course. And, you know, I always felt like, at least with the big band music, that it's kind of, with the big band, it's kind of easy to overwrite for the big band. It's kind of easy to write a bunch of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and with the thing that I was going through, I felt like I needed to get to like the core of whatever I was doing musically, and kind of cut off all the frivolous kind of junk. You know, like some of these arrangements, the original versions were super long and like super like, you know, meander on into things that were like whatever. You know,
so
like,
the fact that it was this loss that it became such a personal statement made you edit a lot of things out and get more to the point.
Right. So, you know, like that has something to do with it. And, you know, some of the, I mean, you know, it can be, it's not disjointed, the situation and the music is definitely connected.
Yeah.
But I think the project came out pretty nice, and it's not something that's like, it's not like a Requiem kind of thing, you know. The music has some joy in it, you know, and
it's, joy and heroism. Like it's heroic, and I think that I didn't know your story of loss at that time, and it makes me rehear the music and hear new things. But the fact that it was this dedication to Jose Marti, who was so important as a hero for yourself, but also for the whole country, for Cuba.
Right. I mean, Jose Marti, for those of you that are not super, I mean, if you know even a little bit about Latin American history, you know, you kind of know who he is, because he was a very kind of like a quintessential figure in the 1800s in Latin America. Jose Marti is essentially our version of George Washington or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's somebody that even though he sadly he died in the first battle of the War of Independence. So I mean, fighting was not his thing. He was really I mean, he wasn't a warrior. He was a poet. He was a writer.
Right.
Probably the most important poet and writer that to come from Cuba. Yeah. He was also a journalist. I mean, this guy is like, he spoke like 5 languages. You know, it wasn't like a. I mean, he was somebody at his time that was really ahead of the.
Yeah, it's we're getting farther and farther away from George Washington. I mean, I don't think George Washington ever wrote a poem. So Jose Marti, you know, the fact that he's a cultural figure as well as a national political.
I mean, he was
figure.
Involved in most of the funding of the War of Independence. Cuba. He did it in the United States, and at that time, when he lived in New York for about 10 years or a little more, working as a journalist. And this is when he did a lot of the funding, you know, I guess crowdfunding. I guess it would be like the GoFundMe version of the 1800s. Right. But at this time, it's also when he wrote perhaps his most famous work, which is this Versos Sencillos, simple verses, which is the work that I used to that inspired me to write this music and to put his poetry into music. That work, I find it resonates a lot with me, mostly because he was exiled by the Spanish from like age 20 or something like that, or you know, he was always trouble to them. So they sent him away to Spain, and then you know, he moved around, came to the United States.
Maybe it's more like Lin-Manuel Miranda's vision of Alexander Hamilton.
Maybe
it's like something in there a little.
but you know, fame-wise, more like George Washington.
Right. Okay, father of his country. Right. But also,
So I find that a lot of those poems that he wrote, there's a lot of longing for the homeland. There's there's definitely an immigrant kind of vibe to a lot of this poetry of him that he wrote in New York. This also talks quite a bit about death, but it also talks about other things like religion. It's very very wide range of emotions in this poetry, and I tried to pick some of the super famous ones for the. I only did 7 for the piece, but I tried to pick some super famous ones, but I also picked some other ones that resonated with me. There's I mean, we could go a little bit into the poetry as we listen to the tracks.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so all of the songs, the lyrics are by Jose Marti.
Yeah.
And the first one we heard was Yo quiero salir del mundo, and then I was thinking we could play Odio la máscara y el vicio, which I guess is a better known one, right?
That's a famous one as well. That one talks about his struggles living in New York and how he misses homeland, how he hates hotels in New York pretty much, how he he longs to go back. That's kind of the he spoke somewhat. He said great things about the United States, but he also said some things that were kind of maybe not so flattering about but he wouldn't have said many flattering things right now about Cuba anyway either. So like he definitely I think he definitely had a sense of the massive discrimination that was in this country towards Black people, and especially at that time.
Right. Well, and the capitalism and the whole system of inequality.
He had this thing about he had this famous quote. See if I could translate it. He said something like, "I lived inside the eagle, and I know his womb." Ooh. Like it's kind of like,
wow.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's but he also said very amazing things about the American people and the spirit of the American people, which undoubtedly is great. But about the government, he was sort of so.
So let's hear this one, and I should just say that the singer on the previous track and on this track is Camila Meza, and of course it's Manuel Valera's arrangement and composition with the lyrics of Jose Marti.
Odio la máscara y el vicio del corredor de mi hotel. Me vuelvo al manso bullicio de mi monte de laurel con los pobres de la tierra. Quiero yo mi suerte echar. El arroyo de la sierra me complace más que el mar. Denle al vano el oro tierno que arde y brilla en el crisol. A mí denme el bosque eterno cuando rompen en el sol. Visto el oro hecho tierra, barbullendo en la redoma. Prefiero estar en la sierra cuando vuela una paloma. Busca al obispo de España, pilares para suelta. En mi templo, en la montaña,
Such a beautiful track.
Yeah, thanks.
And the opening percussion, it sounds like some Cuban percussion instruments, and it's a very specific rhythmic.
Yeah, that's called a danzón, and that's the national dance of Cuba. And it's supposed to be one of the oldest forms. You know, Cuba is very interesting in the way we have very strong African folkloric roots, but we also have very strong European roots. And this style of music is like a ballroom dancing type of music, very old, and it's based on there's a lot of French influence. And there's also the classical form of this traditionally, not in my version, but traditionally these songs have the rondo form.
Yeah.
You know, like it's all very based in classical music, and this music also had originally some people know this, some people don't know this. The timbal, the timbales is just it's pretty much a timpani with the bottom cut out.
Right.
So originally it had just the regular timpani playing that groove that Jimmy's playing the snare.
Yeah.
And then it became, they cut the timbale down off, and that's what the timbale has a pitch, and it's like a very defined pitch.
Right.
So
and you tune the rest of the arrangement to the tuning of the timbale, I would imagine.
Actually, man, sometimes like if on one of the New Cuban Express records, there was something that I just couldn't figure out what the hell it was clashing, and it was actually we'll figure out in the recording studio, but it was actually the tone of the timbal and the bass. There's some stuff that was like this, because it's a very defined pitch. It's like a timpani.
Right. Interesting.
But, yeah.
So, I mean, you've talked about the message of all kinds of Cuban music to your own music, and in particular for this record, New Cuban Express and a very specific dedication. I read you talking about the music of Cuba from the 70s and 80s as like a primary influence for you. What artists would you, when you say that, who were you talking about?
In the 70s and 80s, I mean, the 70s and 80s, well, first of all, in the 50s in New York, everybody was together here, we were all, the Caribbean people were playing music, Tito Rodriguez, Machito, Mario Bauza, Tito Puente. Then after 59, when Fidel took over, Cuba got closed off completely from the world for a good 20 years, at least musically, in most other ways as well, but definitely musically. And there was a lot of stuff that happened in Cuba that didn't really happen in New York. I find that mostly is because in New York you have the immigrant sentiment of kind of holding on to your roots. If you're Jewish, you try to be, try to do all the Jewish things, even more so probably than somebody in Israel, maybe. Or you know what I'm saying? If you're Cuban, you try to really hold on to your Cuban roots, Cuban food, do this, do that. But in Cuba, and I think that happened with the music in New York too. Like the music from the 50s, people held on to the way the music was, just to kind of keep grounded in what they had left.
Yeah.
But in Cuba, the people didn't have that sentiment of holding on to holding on to the past as much. And they still don't. So in the 70s, there were a lot of artists that came out in the 60s and 70s. And some of my biggest influences in Cuban music, I have a lot of super big influence in jazz as well. But in Cuban music, it's a pianist by the name of Emiliano Salvador. Great pianist. He was kind of influenced by McCoy Tyner. Played a lot of Fender Rhodes. It's a great arranger as well. Also, the famous band Iraquere.
Yeah.
And Chucho Valdez.
Sure.
And I'm personally very influenced by a couple of by some dance bands too, like Los Bambang, just huge, super popular kind of rock status of Cuban dance music.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, Manuel, I'll just say here in the States, we call them Los Van Van. Yeah, it's a little different, but still, in case people didn't get it, that's a great band.
Yeah, that is a really fantastic band. So I mean, a lot of that music kind of comes across a lot more in the smaller version of this band, the New Cuban Express. But it's definitely here as well. It's kind of undeniable. Like, when you're really into something, it seems to always pop up everywhere.
I was thinking just how, in addition to all those musical influences and all of that great Cuban and American music, because like you said, there was a period where we were all together, where a lot of things were born. Right. And the message of that coming through in your music, but it's also like with Jose Marti, like you said earlier, the message being a poetic, social statement type message. It comes through for me in this record. And it's also, I think, in the way that you deal with both vocalists, both Camila Meza and Sophia Ray.
Right.
You set them up where they deliver these lyrics that can be really harsh, and it's just beautiful. It's really, really nice.
I mean, so some of the, it was a little tough because, the part about the singers is because it's kind of, and I think it came out okay at the end, but I found that it was that I wanted the singers not to be like a singer record with a big band, like like Frank or some of those, that kind of thing. I didn't really want that. I wanted the singer to be more like Norma Winston with Kenny Wheeler kind of thing, where she's kind of part of the ensemble. Mm-hmm. But then you also have the problem that you have lyrics, and I think Norma Winston hardly ever used. She was mostly doing vocalists with the big band with Kenny Wheeler. Maybe there was a couple of lyrics here and there, but so when you have the lyrics, you have to kind of give them a little more room. But I felt that I talked to both of them and I asked them which compositions they felt more comfortable with, because both of them played the whole suite, and I wanted to have both of them because, for example, with Camila, I find. First of all, it was very difficult to find singers that spoke Spanish that were like super killing and super jazz musicians.
And the musicality of it, and with a personality that fit the goals of the project.
Right, but that being said, then I felt like on some of the tunes that Camila sings, I find that she has more of a jazz sensibility to her musicianship. So I tried to pick those tunes, the tunes that were more like a jazz tune kind of vibe. I gave it to Camila, and the ones that Sophia sings, she's also a jazz singer, but she has this very kind of raw, kind of South American sounding. I mean, she's from South America, so she has a South American kind of sentiment or feeling that I really love for the songs that she sings. Sophia is also like a super virtuoso singer.
Yeah.
And that music, the tunes that she sang, I'm not saying that Camila couldn't have done it, she did them too. But for those songs that she sang, I mean, she's all over them. The range is like super kind of wide and she's tuning is perfect and she's just all over it.
You chose the personalities of the songs and them really well, I thought. But I also, I have to say, I know them both and I've heard them both a lot. And there were times on this record where I wasn't quite sure, where I was pretty sure which one it was, but I didn't want to go cheat and look at the credits. So I was just listening through going, And I think Por sus ojos encendidos is Sophia. Am I right?
No, it's Camila.
Oh! What? Let me ask you this.
2 out of 3.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's close. 2 out of 3 wins on Wait, Don't Tell Me. Hey, so which one would you want to listen to hear some great Sophia Ray folk?
Okay. The El Enemigo Brutal. That poem is probably one of the harshest poems in the record, just because he talks about how cruel and vile the Spanish were to not only the Cuban militia or whatever, the insurgents or however you want to call it, but they were also super cruel to the Cuban people. And it talks about them slaughtering people on the streets, and kind of a heavy poem. That's why I wanted to have that kind of, like with the flutes, with the piccolo, and I wanted to have like I don't want to say like a revolutionary band kind of vibe, but I wanted to have that kind of like a street sounding ensemble. There's also, I think I use like 2 trumpets and 2 flugels, lots of woodwinds, lots of bass trombone. I wanted to have that kind of like a strong, kind of like warfare type ensemble. Of course, a little more refined, but
The Brutal Enemy.
Yeah.
El enemigo brutal nos pone fuego a la casa, el sable la calle arrasa a la luna tropical. Pocos salieron ilesos del sable del español, la calle al salir el sol, pero un reguero de pasa entre balas un coche, entra llorando una muerta, llama una mano a la puerta, el do negro de la noche, no hay bala que no taladre, y el portón y la mujer que llama, yo no sé, que viene a buscar mi madre. A la boca de la muerte, los valientes habaneros se quitaron los sombreros ante la matrona fuerte, y después que nos besamos como 2 locos, me dijo: vamos pronto, vamos rico, la niña está suelta.
Wow, you're right. That does have like a street band
Right.
kind of vibe to it. I
Right.
mean, not in an obvious way, but
Right.
in a real
Oh, just
referential way.
with the piccolo on the flute, it kind of gives it that something that you could hear like almost like a municipal band or something, like like a concert band or something.
Right.
Like that.
Right. A municipal band. I like that. It's also interesting. That's the only track that you played synthesized, that you played keyboards on.
Yeah, and it's only at the beginning.
Yeah.
that's the only track that I played celeste too.
Right. Celeste. So there's no xylophone. It's just celeste mixed in.
I mean, I love that sound.
That's a great sound for Sophia too.
We're gonna talk about the tiptoe, the Thad Jones thing, but he uses that as well.
Interesting. Yeah. I hadn't thought of it that way. So I want to, when we're done with this interview, I'm going to do an extra with you and ask you about Thad Jones' Tiptoe.
Cool.
And that'll go to subscribers. But I mean, yeah, you said earlier about having a regular gig, how important that is, but it's also like having the personalities of the band. We talked about Camila and Sophia a little bit, but you have other key members like the bass player that played that thing towards the beginning.
The rhythm section and the big band. I've always approached it. I mean, I always loved the way, not to keep talking about Thad, but I always loved the way Thad's rhythm section kind of sounded like a small group rhythm section playing with a big band.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, it's like a small group, and then when the big stuff happens, then then it's a big band. But when the solos are happening, it's really like just like a small group from the 60s, like being open, like they could just break out, like it's just be piano and the soloist, bass and the soloist, bass and drums and the soloist, whatever. It wasn't really like, it was really, I felt like it was really open the way they approached it. And I kind of wanted to approach the big band recording rhythm section wise that way as well, where we're just kind of really taking risks and we're not really babysitting anybody. And the soloists, the soloists in the band are so amazing that they all dig that. It's like a small group with a big band,
right? And that's like everybody you've mentioned, Thad Jones, like you said, with Mel Lewis, but also Gil Evans's bands worked that way, and Kenny Wheeler's bands worked that way. And if you think about it, Mingus, even though it wasn't officially a big band, it was a large number of horns and a rhythm section that was just playing the way they would if it was a trio.
Exactly. No, I feel sometimes with big bands, you're talking about some of the main jazz artists, but sometimes with big bands, especially big band rhythm sections could kind of be a little, like not a lot happening, or it's kind of more down the line, whatever. I'm not trying to say that, that's not cool or not right or whatever, but I always feel like and Ricky, Jimmy, and I have such a strong connection that we kind of go into these different places, rhythm section wise, but for the soloists and kind of make it.
Can you say their full names before we move along because people might not know?
Oh yeah, the drummer and the recording is young drummer, amazing, by the name of Jimmy McBride. And the bass player is Ricky Rodriguez, and our percussion is Samuel Torres. And on this last track that we heard is Mauricio Herrera, great Cuban percussionist who also plays batat drums on that track. I always, the rhythm section has such a strong connection in the, we play so much together as a rhythm section that we could really take risks and kind of, the soloists could, we'd follow the soloists anywhere kind of vibe, like it doesn't have to.
Well, and you have horn players in the sections that know how to follow that know how to hear where one is. So there's no question. Yeah.
I was so fortunate that every single member of that big band is a great soloist. Like there's nobody that they wouldn't want to give them a solo. It's like everybody's happening. And that was kind of a struggle as well, because there's so many great players. Yeah. And you want to feature all of them, but you can't. I think everybody in the band has a solo at some point.
I think you do really well at featuring each player in a place that really suits them, and they, it's not like there's long 20-minute solos, but everybody's got a nice thing that really fits into the message of the song. Well,
I thought exactly that it would be better just to have maybe like 2 solos per song and just kind of give them room to do the thing, as opposed to having like 8 solos, and because then you also lose interest. I find that this recording, it kind of goes by quickly. If you if you put the record on, I mean nobody puts a record on anymore, but if you listen to it on iTunes, like driving or something, you realize the record is done soon, and it's not something drawn out. Even though some of the tunes are long, they're very episodic, so they kind of don't feel like you're kind of staying in the same spot. I feel the same way with your music, Dave. Feel that it always keeps the listener kind of hunting and entertained, and I think that's kind of what you want from a record. You don't want to feel like, oh my God, how long is this song?
I would just, I'm going back to what you were saying about the rhythm section. I think that the rhythm section in a big band, it's just how the arranger chooses to use them. And so you have this rhythm section you're really familiar with. And so you're able to build that whole independent, freewheeling, risk-taking operation into an arrangement and have an opportunity to make all that seamless. And I feel like you kind of do that on all these pieces. There's one of them that I was going to ask you what the title means. It's Si quiere que de este mundo.
The whole thing is, if you want me to have the first sentence of the poem is, if you want me to have a good memory of this world, and then it goes on to say all the other things.
Wow.
So these poems don't have titles. It's just a Roman numeral, and then the first line of the poem. Yeah. But that's not necessarily the title of the poem.
Mm-hmm.
This one is talking about his I guess eminent passing away.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really crazy. So he's talking about how if the world it's kind of hard to explain, but it's like if you want me to have a fond memory of this world, of this world, do this and that and that and that.
Wow.
Like all these things, like don't bury me upside down, don't bury me face down, and that kind of all that.
Wow.
Let me the one that you play with Camila, por sus ojos encendidos, it's actually really like a that's almost like the Sixth Sense. The movie with Bruce Willis, where he's dead but he doesn't know it.
Right.
It's that kind of thing. Like he's.
That's a spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen The Sixth Sense.
Oh. I would think most people have seen that one now, but there's always new ones. In that case, I'm sorry.
So
anyway, like what's happening in this poem is that it's like the first person of the person that's telling the poem. He sees his girlfriend is disheveled and crying, and he thinks it's because she was cheating on him or something, and then at the end of towards, it's a kind of small poem, but towards the last two lines, she sees her holding what do you call that in the newspaper when you when you pass away? Huh?
Obituary.
Yeah, the obituary. She sees an obituary, which back then it was in a card, and it has his name on it. So she was actually crying for him, and he's passed away, and he didn't know it. And he was kind of a ghost in the whole thing.
So I guess we have to hear that one then, Por sus ojos encendidos, right?
Yeah.
And this features you as well as Camila, but you have some beautiful piano playing on this one.
Oh, thanks. If I should mention something else, I didn't really, like on this record, I didn't feel I wanted to make it all about my piano playing so much. Like I only take a couple solos. Like I wanted to make it more of the writing and the ensemble really than my playing. But
well, you play a beautiful solo on this piece.
Thanks, man.
Por tus ojos encendidos y lo mal puesto de un broche, pensé que estuviste anoche jugando a juegos prohibidos. Te odié por vil y alevosa, te odié con odio de muerte, náusea me daba de verte.
Beautiful writing, beautiful playing.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah. I think it's great that you featured yourself as a player some. I mean, I know the instinct as a writer or arranger is you want it to be about the band.
Right.
And the record clearly is, but you really played great on it. I just wanted to maybe wrap this up by mentioning that we've been talking about doing this chat for a long time, and one of the first things you mentioned was all the the music you sent me was not your own music. It was music of your favorite arrangers. And I was like, well, okay, that's cool. We will talk about that in the extra. But I thought it was really interesting that among them prominently was Kenny Wheeler, because he's more often thought of as a, trumpet, flugelhorn, small group soloist, and of course he was a brilliant composer and arranger as well. Did you get up close to his music?
Yeah. My father had some couple of records by him when we, but I came through, I came in contact with his big band music at the same time that I came with Dad's music. In Florida State, the guy was also a huge Kenny Wheeler fan, so we played a lot of those big band arrangements with the big band. I was always blown away.
Yeah.
And I study. I kind of adapted a lot of his writing into my writing as well. There's like a saxophone chorale that then becomes like a whole band chorale for it's an intro, one of the tunes. And I kind of was inspired by one of Kenny Wheeler's pieces.
The music for large and small ensembles, something like that.
Yeah, I think it's like the first track on the record.
I think I heard
started
that.
The saxophone chorale kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just an aesthetically that influence. I wasn't really like copying his thing at all, but
Well, but I think as a composer, you hear something that inspires you, and what results is your own piece that was inspired by that other piece. And and composers listening to music are never hearing the music that's playing. They're hearing their own reflections on what they're hearing and what it means to them. And sometimes you hear something that's just like a bolt of lightning that causes you to write something, and it may end up not sounding anything at all like the thing.
What's funny about the saxophone chorale thing? I've always held that like one of my favorite things on that Kenny Wheeler record. And a friend of mine, who kind of co-produced the record with me, he listened to it and he was like, man, the saxophones are not really that tight. And that crowd. And then when I listened to it again, I was like, oh man, what did you say there? Now I hear it. And these, imperfections, but I still love it.
Yeah, it sounds human.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Gil. His name has come up a few times. Gil Evans. Yeah, it's hard to talk about the influence of him because it's so huge and it's so subtle.
Yeah, man. Like especially those recordings with Miles. Like sketches of Spain.
Yeah, that's
and Miles Ahead. And even
Porgy and Bess is another one.
Yeah. Even The Birth of the Cool, that's even The Birth of the Cool has also like Jerry Mulligan arrangements and some other people. But on this, I always love on those big band arrangements. It's like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there is piano, or if there's piano, there's very minimal piano. Right. And I generally love recordings that don't have piano.
I mean, you could observe the same thing in a lot of the music of Duke Ellington, Billy Strayhorn.
Exactly. There's not a lot of piano. The piano is not and I love the way Gil kind of has the ensemble kind of comp behind Miles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you don't really miss the piano. And I kind of wanted to. I mean, there's lots of piano in my stuff, but I like that idea of the music, the background's kind of propelling the solo is, even though there's lots of piano in this recording, but
yeah,
and also the colors that he uses, I wish I used French horns. He uses French horns. He uses lots of flutes.
Right.
I even used some oboe in my recording. He used instruments that were not really popular in jazz.
And prominently tuba.
Tuba too.
It's an important sound in that music.
Especially in Birth of the Cool. It's huge, Birth of the Cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bill Barber. Yeah. And you mentioned Bob Brookmeyer, who, we were going to just skip on by, but boy, what an incredible influence.
That's a guy the development of Bob Brookmeyer over the years, it's really incredible. Like, he was somebody that always didn't mind taking risks in his music at all. Yeah, I mean, he kind of that was kind of his vibe, taking lots of risks.
Yeah.
Because when you hear like the stuff that he wrote with Thad Jones, Mel Lewis, it's still somewhere in the style of Thad a little bit, but he's definitely going for some other stuff, like the harmonically and the clusters and and his playing too. Like, his playing was incredible.
His playing always cracks me up because he if you think about it, he kind of always plays the same. I mean, Miles Davis always played the same,
right?
But the context changes so much, and it's always like you see him get like in that video of St. Louis Blues of his arrangement with Thad and Mel in 1968, and Randy Brecker is sitting back there in the trumpet section. Snooky Young is playing lead, and he gets up, and I'm thinking, boy, what is he going to do? This is such a strange harmonic context, and he just plays those incredibly swinging lines that have all the inner voice leading and harmonic movement within them, and it just sounds like him, like when he was playing with Jimmy Jufree Trio.
There's some stuff with Stan Getz that's really killing too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. So let's wrap this up. I was going to play Tiene el Leopardo un abrigo, which to my nominal Spanish means the leopard has a coat. Has an overcoat.
The leopard has an. Well, it's.
Is that like the creator has a master plan, but the leopard has an overcoat?
It's kind of like the creator has a master plan more than the leopard has a coat, but the leopard though has a coat. Has a pretty fancy coat. And that one talks about friendship. He's talking about like, the leopard has a coat, but I have a great friend. That's kind of and he goes, and it's really all about friendship. Like, there's all this, about the importance of having a great friend and supporting causes and supporting friends and that kind of thing. It's kind of a positive poem because he says the leopard has a great coat.
Yeah,
he obviously does. It's really fancy coat, leopard skin. But I have more because I have a great friend.
Wow,
and it goes on.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me, for making the time, for making the record. I know there's more to come. And I know, like, during this time when we're all separated, you're probably writing, and I guess you're not doing the gig at Terraza.
No, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
We're doing some, but not with the big band. Yeah. It's just,
yeah.
You can't do that. You can't do big bands in COVID times.
It's going to come around. It's going to come back. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. Thank you. It's great to see you. Great to talk to you. I really appreciate you making the time. Thanks.
Yeah, Dave, it's a pleasure, man, always.
Fantastic. It's Tiene el leopardo un abrigo, but I have a better friend. Manuel Valera. Thanks. This has been another episode of the Greenleaf Music Podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Greenleafmusic.com is where you can find all these episodes and all the music that we make and more. Thanks for listening.